Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. This is Bloxels EDU, and it is Video Game Creation and Content Mashup. If you want to follow along with us and use the Bloxels app, you might want to download it to your device. It can be used on iPads and Android devices and Chromebooks. It's an awesome app, and I hope that you will add it and join along with us. The first thing we're going to talk about is what Bloxels EDU is, how do we use it at my school, and then how you can hopefully use it at yours. So the best way to show you how it can be used is through this video. It's very easy for me as a librarian to see the English language arts part of how this could be integrated into content, but it was very difficult for me to think about all the ways that we could use it in other content areas. When I saw this video, it exploded my collaboration ideas and gave me lots of different directions that we could go in. So I hope this video gives you some ideas right off the bat of where you could use it, either in your own classroom, or if you are a librarian or an administrator, how your school could use it in different classrooms and content areas. So that is a very quick introduction into the games that your students can create from scratch. It is so amazing, the creativity that kids come up with and the things that they can do. So I don't want you to feel discouraged or already being like, there's no way my kids could do that. They can, and it's so simple. Bloxels is built off of blocks. That is where the name came from. And it is built off of these 8 colors of blocks. That's where most of the coding comes from. Your students don't have to code. The game or the software has the coding already implanted in it. You just have to kind of build your game with these blocks so that the game knows how to work. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how all the blocks work and how the actual mechanics of the game works, just so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable introducing it to your students. But the best part is that you don't have to know everything. They are going to take this and run with it. It's all built off of this game frame, I guess, quadrant. It has 13 by 13. It's a 13 by 13 square, so it has 169 of these itty bitty teeny tiny squares inside it. And that is where you would actually lay down blocks. So if you've got a physical box to work with, then you're going to have game frames, which are these black boards, and then you will have those 8 colors of blocks. If you look at the very center of this, there's a little circle in the center. And that is where the game automatically begins. So when you open up the software, that's the square that you're working in. And inside that one itty bitty square is another 13 by 13 frame where you can actually build the world that your character is going to start gaming through. These blocks are how you build the game that your character is going to move through. Each of them means something different. I relate it to Mario because that is the video game that I grew up with, and lots of other people may have been introduced to it. Our students know who Mario is. They may not have played the Super Nintendo Mario that we grew up with, but they definitely can relate to Mario. So that's kind of how I introduce these concepts to them. So your green blocks are safe. It is the terrain blocks. It's grass, it's dirt. It can be whatever you want it to be. If you're doing a sci-fi story or whatever, it can be metal pieces. It really doesn't matter what it is, but the way that your character interacts with it is based on this code. So green blocks are safe. Your character can run, they can jump, they can stand and be safe on those blocks. It's just a place for them to be there. Blue blocks are water. They don't have to look like water, but they act like water. And so what that means is that your character can move through them like they are underwater. So they swim through them. You have to constantly press up to keep them from floating down or sinking, I guess. And you have to have 2 jumps to get out of water. But these water blocks can look like anything. They can look like a ladder so that your character can move up to the next level. They can look like lava. They can look like fog or clouds that your character needs to move through. The hard part for students is getting them to realize that even though the blue block makes your character act like water, it doesn't have to look like water. Red blocks are damage blocks. They are the things that hurt your characters that aren't bad guys. So it's things like lava and spikes and things like that. It can be water if your character is allergic to water or you are a hydrophobic molecule or whatever. You can make it, once again, look like anything, but that red block is a terrain block. It's going to stay stationary, but it's going to cause damage to your character. It's going to take away health or life from them. Yellow blocks are coins. Those are collectibles, things that your character needs to collect as they are on their way through their journey. So in Mario, they definitely are coins. But it can be things like pizza rolls or whatever. If you're building a narrative, the options are endless. If you are building something for content's sake, then it needs to be related to content. So I try to emphasize that with my students, that whatever they're collecting along the way needs to make sense with the content that they are teaching me. Purple blocks are villains. They are your bad guys. They can fly, they can walk, they can jump. They are also customizable. You can make them small, and then as you go throughout the game, they can get bigger and harder to beat. You can also create boss characters where they're very large and very hard to defeat, so that when you get to the end of the game, you have this big boss, kind of like Bowser, that you have to defeat before you can move on. Pink blocks are power-ups. And they are ways that you can change your character. So if you remember the very hungry caterpillar example that was in the movie, he ate something and then he got bigger. And the way that they made that character or that caterpillar get bigger is they used a power-up. And all it did was change his image. It changed the way that he looked. These can also give your character special abilities. So if you remember the fire flowers in Mario, when Mario ate the fire flower, he could spit fireballs. You can do that. You can give your character special abilities, or you can cause them to fly for a couple of game frames or whatever you need to do. It's ways that you can change your character, either their appearance or what they can actually do in the game. It also gives your character lives. It's a way that when you're throughout the game, if you have damage that's being caused to your character and you don't want your people who are playing your game to die as often, then you can give them extra life this way. Orange blocks are the ways that characters can manipulate things. So if you saw, I think it was in the DNA example, there was a place where the character walked over this wall, but she needed to get through it. And so she could manipulate that block and move it and then throw it at something, and it actually exploded. That's what those orange blocks are for. So it's things that your character can pick up and take with them, but also if they throw them at villains, then it can kill the villains. The white blocks are the most important part, but it is the hardest part to get our students to focus on. The white blocks is how they tell their story. If they are building a narrative, then it's how they explain what's happening. If they are proving mastery of content, then it is what they are showing how they know that these things, I guess. It's how they're teaching their content to whoever is playing the game. It is the most important block, but it's very, very difficult to get our students to focus on those white blocks. So this is what it would look like if you were building a frame. This would take up the space of one of these teeny tiny little blocks in our software. But you can see that there are coins that your character could pick up. There are bad guys, there are power-ups, things that they can do. And those red blocks in my vision were water that my character had to jump over. Lava blocks. If you are building characters, because you don't only build your world, but you also get to build characters and art. If you are building characters, the block colors don't matter. They are just colors, and you can actually manipulate them. If you remember at the very, very beginning of the movie, it showed you they were building an alien and kind of like this spaceship, and they built it with blocks and some colors, but then they actually changed the colors to match the colors in their game. So you can do that. You can manipulate colors. One of our first projects that we did this with, they were doing original narratives in 6th grade GRC. And so one of their villains was evil clowns. So I took that and created this character just to explain to them how they could create characters with the blocks themselves. You can also create art. And so we had somebody that did pizza rolls as their collectible. So this is my version of a Bloxels pizza roll. Notice everything is pixelated. So getting students to take their images and kind of figure out a way to pixelate them is difficult, but it's something that they get very used to as the project goes on. Bloxels is a cost subscription service. So I want to go ahead from the beginning and let you know that it does have a cost associated with it. There is a way to get a free trial, and I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. And we actually worked off of free trials for a year and a half to make sure that we wanted the software, to make sure that our students were going to use it as much as we thought that they were, and then to make sure that we could use it in multiple content areas. Once we figured that out and that we do love it and that we do want to use it in content areas outside of ELA, then we actually wrote grants for the lifetime pricing. So if you got a 50 student bundle account, it's $250 a year, and that is a lot. But you also get blocks and frames and access to this awesome software. So if you wanted to check it out for a year, you could pay the $250, or you could do the free trial. We actually did the lifetime pricing. I wrote a grant to our parent organizations and asked them to fund this after I had games of what our actual students created. You'll get to see some of those today. And I think having the product to show the parents of this is what our students in our building did with this helped us get the funding. If you want to sign up for a free trial, then that is easily possible. Don't sign up until you're actually ready to use it, but sign up a couple of days before you're ready to use the software so that you know you have it ready. It used to be a weekly trial or a 14-day trial, but now it's just based off of what you need. Our projects usually lasted 5 days of actual building time. So that was for middle school, just for your planning purposes. But I would wait until you're ready. I used my personal email addresses, I used my school email address, and I got multiple free trials. And then I eventually used teacher email addresses and then just asked them to give me their password that they created so that we could collaborate and grade together. And so that I, the librarian who was teaching the actual components of Bloxels to the students, could have access to their games. This link here is live, and you can click to sign up just so that you can see what it looks like, but I would not sign up yet unless you're ready to use it tomorrow with your students. This is how our project started. It was last year in November, December. A teacher who I collaborated with frequently, 6th grade, GRC, which is our gifted English language arts class, came to me with 3 of these Bloxels kits. She had won them at a technology conference, and she said, I want to do this. This is terrifying to me. Will you figure out how to make it work? I've opened the box. I got really anxious, and that's all I can do. And I said, yes, I would love to. So first, if you are a teacher, do not get overwhelmed by all of the mechanics. Ask your librarian. They might be willing to either watch this video or to figure it out for you, to kind of figure out the mechanics of how it works. So ask people to help, and know that your students are going to get this so much quicker than you anticipate. If you want to use free trials, I would suggest going and looking for at least maybe 5 of these older kits. They are unpublished now, I guess, or they're out of stock or out of market. Bloxels is not actually creating these anymore, but if you're going to use the free trial, you might have 5 or 6 kids that actually want to build physically with the blocks. The free trial itself works. If you have devices that your students can use, then they can build digitally. You don't have to have the kits, but some kids work better actually manipulating the blocks. And if you're going to have students work in pairs, it's really helpful to have one student on a device working on part of the project and have the other person working physically on another part of the project, because then both people are actively working at the same time. This is an Amazon link for where you can get them from Amazon, but you can also find them, I've heard, at thrift stores or Five Below, or some of those other discount stores. They carry these as well. What we did, she figured out that she wanted to incorporate it in her narrative unit, and that she wanted to look at gaming all over, like board games and card games and other really awesome ways that games have narrative components. And so what we did first is we had students come into the library and look at games. They played board games, they played card games, and they analyzed them for narrative structure. The things that are in narratives that made the games better. What were their favorite games? Why were they their favorites? Were the narrative components better in those, or were they less in those? And so they looked at gaming in general and how the narrative components either help or hinder those games. Then they created their own original narrative, and they took that narrative and put it into Storyboard That. Storyboard That is a digital storyboarding software that we had access to through a, once again, we won it at a technology conference. And so we had access to that for all of her students, and they all got to create their own storyboards based off of their original narratives. If you want her rubric for how she graded those, you are welcome to this. We put a link to the document itself in Google Drive, and so you are welcome to copy that and use it for your own if you want to, if you're going to be grading narrative components, which is very easy to do with Bloxels. Then we actually got them in the library, and they came in to build and play games. So you can see that the first time we did this, we did have enough boards for every group. They worked in groups, and each group had one board and a device. And so somebody could be building in both places at the same time, and then they could put those components together, which was awesome. If you want to watch a video, there is one here where you can actually hear the students kind of problem solving through what they were working on and why they made the choices they made. But I'm not going to show that to you right now. This is our rubric for how we actually graded the games. They had one day where I taught all the components, kind of like I did with y'all, where I showed them what each block did, and they got to kind of just play around. And then they only had 3 additional days to build their games. That was plenty of time for 6th graders. They shared their games to the arcade, and then they had a day in class where they played games, and Miss Bolt would go up behind them and grade them there. So they each got to play their own game for her to show her how it should work. And then they actually got other people to play their games. They found out that some of their games were much harder for other people to play than it was for them to play it because they hadn't created it. And some of them were much easier. So it was very interesting to see the difficulty levels and how they changed based on who was playing the game. Once again, the link to this document is in this slideshow if you would like it. Projects that we completed this year. We did 2 different projects in November and December. The first project we did was an elective reading project. And so our 8th grade GRC students are students who are in our 8th grade gifted ELA classes. They have elective reading that they have to do all throughout the year. And so they do different projects based on just to prove that they read the book, basically. And so this was one that we did in November. And they took their elective reading and they turned it into a video game. And these are some of them. These are actually links to play if you would like to. You can come in and click on any of these pictures and see the games that our 8th graders created. They basically did plot structure or kind of did a book report in video game format, which was awesome. But once again, it's related to narrative structure and it's related to English language arts. So I was super excited when a science teacher came to me and said, I want to use this. So a 6th grade science class that was studying natural disasters used this as their summative assessment. And what she did is she had each of her students choose a natural disaster. And they had to teach someone about their natural disaster, what causes it, why it happened, and then what people went through or would go through if they were in this natural disaster, and then how they would build back up after a natural disaster. What would it take in order to build back up, or what would you need to do? Or what happened to the earth after the natural disasters. So her students had to prove that they knew content and they had to teach. The difference between 6th grade and 8th grade work is evident in these 2 slides, but they are both very good looks into how our students are learning and what they actually know about this content. Here are some other ideas. I'm hoping that the video that you saw at the beginning gave you some ideas for your content, but if not, here are some more. Biographical info on historical figures. You saw the Abraham Lincoln, but you could do it in so many different cool ways. One thing that I really thought about was decade experiences. Our 6th grade social studies class does a lot of decade work in history. And so having your students create a video game to teach content about different decades, I think would be really cool. Antibody reactions to viruses. There was actually some really cool video games that came out of COVID and they got posted, and some of them were really excellent. So you could easily do scientific information with video games. Astronaut and space information, environmental PSAs. I actually think that any PSA would be a really cool video game. Or persuasive writing, trying to prove your point. I think both of those lend themselves very well to this kind of activity. Types of angles, shapes, etc. You saw the one with the triangles that moved into a square. That is easily done through the pink power-ups where your character changes. But also, I think capturing the components of an equation or a theorem in algebra would be an also would also be an excellent way for students to prove that they know the content or the parts of those equations. It can be used in math. We may have to think a little bit harder, but it can easily be done. So this sounds really cool, right? But show me how it works. That's what we're going to do right now. The first thing I'm going to do is show you the actual Bloxels hub, which is the teacher viewpoint of what you're going to see when your students start creating games and all the things that you can do. And then I'm going to actually pull up my iPad and show you how the software itself works. So this is the Bloxels hub. This is what it looks like when you have an account. So this is our account where we have 50 lifetime student accounts. And I have already created a class. So if you go down to classes, and if you want multiple classes, you can do that as long as you are working with your available students. So I have 50 student accounts and all of them are in one class. So if I click on OMMS Bloxels, then this is my class and I can see all of my students. I can see the class library, the asset packs, and the arcade. The class library is where any of my students who want to share their work, they can share their work here. So their games would be in purple. They can share characters, they can share art, or they can share backgrounds. And that is super, super cool. So what happens is if they are very, very proud of one of the characters that they created, they can share it to this library and then other people can use it, or they can remix it where they actually change parts of it and make it better or make it different, make it work for their game. Asset packs are things that you make available for your students before anything starts. So let's look. Asset packs. Default is the one that we have accessed right now. And so you see that there are backgrounds that they can use automatically that they don't have to create. There are characters here that are animated already that they can use if they want to, for their good guys, their bad guys. There are coins and end flags and checkpoints and all kinds of things that are available for them to use automatically. They don't have to come up with it. This is huge for your students who have anxiety about being creative. You can add different asset packs based on what you're doing. So if you wanted to add geology because you're doing natural disasters, then you could come in and add geology because it's got all kinds of like lava rocks and all kinds of things. You can decide which ones you want to add. If you choose to add them to the library, then everyone in that class will have access to that asset pack. This is also great for differentiation. If you have different classes that maybe one is an inclusion class and you want to add more asset packs so that they have more available to them, that's an excellent idea. Also, asset packs are huge for your younger students. So your elementary students, I would probably add at least 5 asset packs so that they had places to start and then they can decide what they want to focus their own individual building on. The arcade is where your students actually publish their games when they are complete. And you will have access to all of those games and you can click on them from here and play them and see how your students did. So this is what the actual components look like for you. For each student, you can click on them individually and see what they've got going on. You see we've got an untitled game that started for student 1. You can click on that and it shows you what they've been working on. So basically they just have one game frame that has been completed so far. It also shows you their story block text in narrative format so that you can kind of see how they're building their story, which is fun. You can also see their characters and art and background. The cool thing about students is that you have control over their password. You can reset it if you need to. So like at the end of each project, I plan to go back and reset all the passwords so that on the next project, the students can create their own again. Also, At the end of each conference, I can reset the passwords so that I can do this presentation again exactly the way I need to, and everybody can have access to a student. So there is this thing called releasing to parents. I am truthfully not sure how that works. There is a way to get extra lifetime accounts if you bought that $250 for 1 year 50 student accounts. If you released those accounts to the parents and they paid $10 for their student to keep using it at home, then you would actually get a lifetime account for your classroom. So there is a way to do that. I haven't figured it out yet. So this is Bloxels. This is Bloxels EDU. This is technically what you pay for. You pay for the ability to have a class in this software and then for your students to have access to building through this software. Let's look at how it actually works once you get a student up. I'm going to get my iPad right now. And I'm going to share. So there is a little bit of a delay with sharing and on the iPad. There just is. So I'm going to try to do my best to make sure that y'all are caught up with me. So Bloxels, sorry, I'm going to do that again, is the red app. It just says Bloxels on it. When you log in, sorry. I'm logged in right now, so I'm going to log out just so that you can see what it looks like when a student logs in for the first time. So this is what will come up the first time that you open the Bloxels app. It has the login screen at the top, which is what we want to do. We are going to do a student login, and if you want to play along with me right now, you are welcome to. Our code for today is AETC 21. And then you can click next. All right, now we are going to click on a student. I'm going to click on student 1 because I've already been working on that, but you can click on another student if you want to, and you can put in a 4-digit code. So I'm going to make it easy, and I'm going to do once. Once you are logged in, then you will see the student information in the top left, and we are going to click on Builder because we are going to build, and we are going to build a game. I already have a game. If you do not, then it will open up an untitled game, and it should look something like this. And so if you click on this square at the top, you're going to see all the room that your students have to build. And it starts you right here somewhere near the middle, but they can move their character wherever they want to and start building. So this is our little Milo character. He is our default character. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to scan in an image of a game that I created in the actual block kit. Okay, so I built with physical blocks and I want to add in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my camera, and you can see my computer screen right here, but this is the game that I actually created with blocks, and I'm going to click OK. And when I do that, it actually imports my game. And so that's what I want. And I'm going to move Milo up so that I can edit some of this. So you can see that I have green blocks and red blocks and whatever. One of my blocks actually is incorrect, and so I'm going to fix that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to this red block right here, and I'm going to click on pink because I wanted this to be a power-up. Red and pink sometimes get messed up, and that's okay. Your students can edit, and they can build on this actual screen, so that's the cool part. And actually, these white blocks weren't there. They were just a glare. So I'm actually going to take those white blocks away. So this is what my game looks like right now. Now, I wanted all of this to be blue, but I didn't have enough actual blue blocks. So now I'm going to come in I'm going to add all my water parts around my frame so that my character has water to swim through until I'm ready for him to not. And I'm going to put, there we go. All right, if I want to see how it works, then I can click test, and it's actually going to allow me to play it. Now it's a little bit slow on y'all's end, but I can make sure that everything works the way I want it to. And then I can edit more. So you can see that my two bad guys, my villains down here, actually fell through the water. I didn't make them bad guys. So if I click on them, I can go to the wrench and I can edit them. Hey, something went wrong. My purple blocks are not purple blocks. All right, let's fix that. There we go. Now I can edit them. So this is going to be a bad guy. I'm going to make him a flying bad guy. So he actually stays in the water. And I want him to fly like a ghost. And I can decide how big he is or how strong he is to kill, and etc. And then I can save it. And I can do the same thing again, or what's really cool is I can stamp this. So I can move it here, and I can stamp it, and then move it back. And it will fix all of my villains to look like that, whichever ones I stamp. Yes, students figure this out very easily, I promise. Okay, so that's how you actually create the code, but let's say you wanted to make it look different, because we don't want it to look like this. What we can do is we can click on the little picture icon at the bottom, and we can go to Asset Packs, and we can choose, ooh, grass. I like that. I'm going to click another plus sign, and I'm going to find some water. And I'm going to click another plus sign and find a coin, and I'm going to find another plus sign and do a life. So all this stuff you can do, and you add them here. And then, ooh, that's cool. You can actually go put them in. So if I wanted to put grass right here and water right here, the biggest thing that a lot of people don't know is that you can also do the same thing as a background to cover up. So let's say I want this water to be behind all those coins and things, but I don't want to mess up the code. Then what I can do there's a way to do this. It's not working for me right now, but that's okay. So there are ways to make sure that your water continues through your coins and things like that. There are lots of really, really cool things that you can do with making water not look like water. We talked about that, making water ladders, all that kind of stuff. But the stamps are how you add your prettiness over the code itself. And then when you play it, it looks a lot more realistic. And there is what a game looks like as you are building it. If you want to see finished games of what students actually created, please go back to my examples that I had in the slideshow, because there are awesome examples there. If you want to build a character, it looks a little bit different. Character and art are very similar. So I decided that I was going to have my students create characters and art. So I'm actually going to do an art. If you want to do characters, you can pull in characters. So what you would do is you would actually go to view all assets, and you can look at a character and remix them. I'm going to show you what that looks like here. And you can actually change the colors of all of these. The hardest part about remixing is that most of the characters from asset packs are animated. And so you have to change the colors on everything, which is a little bit different. But you can see their animations in the screen and what it looks like. I'm going to show you what it looks like to create art. So I decided that I was going to do a collectible of gumballs. And so I created gumballs on the actual physical board, and I'm going to show you again what it looks like. Okay, and once again, my red came out as pink because of the lighting in here, but I'm going to go back and fix that. And then this is exactly what I did. This is exactly what I created, so I'm happy with that. I am going to add some animation to this. And I'm going to flip some of them so that it looks like the gumballs are moving around in my gumball machine. And I'm also going to put a little door that opens into my gumball machine. And so when I do that, it actually animates. And so that's really fun. I'm actually going to change this to blue because I think it'll look better. There we go, with a blue dot that flashes. So that's how you animate things. You can change them and make them different, and that's what it'll look like. And so if I wanted to go back and put this in my game itself, then what I would do is I would go back to Game Builder. I would click on my game and edit it. And then I'm going to click here and I'm going to go to my stuff. And my gumballs are right here. And so what I can do is I can put them over my coins now. And they should look like that, which is really cool. And so when you test it, now your gumballs are there. Yay! And I can go and get them. And I keep hitting my spikes that are there, which I did not mean to do. And I'm going to kill myself. Ah, there it went. I died. All right, so I realized that my game is probably too hard and I need to take away some of my spikies, things like that. I'm encouraging our students to kind of problem solve as part of this as well. I hope that this gave you a little glimpse into how you can actually create these games. Once again, your students figure out a whole lot way faster than we do. So please don't be discouraged. If you feel overwhelmed, you are welcome to email me. If you want to keep playing along and you want to either look at the Educator Hub, the EDU Hub for teachers, or if you want to look at the student view and keep building and figure out how it works, you are welcome to use these logins to get in. They are open until August 6th because I do have another school year starting then, and I hope to use it with students in the fall. And then also I should be presenting at another conference, so I want to make sure that it's ready for that as well. If you have any questions or you need any help, you are welcome to email me. My email is whowton@shelbyed.org. And so I'm actually going to type that in to this That way you have it. All right, so it's, there we go. It is Howton, Howton at shelbyed.org. And it is here. If you need to just click on it, it is now in the slideshow itself. You are welcome to get the link from the beginning, and then you can have this slideshow as your own. That way you can have all the links and whatever you need. I hope that this was helpful. Once again, if you need my help, you're welcome to contact me. Thank you for being here.